we're going to be looking at the artwork of Faith Ringgold. She's a great artist, and we're specifically going to look at her story quilts. And you can get a better idea of her story quilts by reading the book Tar Beach. So if you haven't had a chance to listen to that story yet, make sure you do before you start making your own. What you're going to need today is some paper, you're going to need a pencil, and some crayons. All right, so I'll show you a finished one of kind of what we're going to eventually have when we're done. This will probably be different for you, and the outside is also going to be a little bit different for you. So if you were looking at Faith Ringgold's artwork and her story quilts, you will notice that it's actually really quilted around. She takes squares or pieces of material and sews them together. This is kind of part of her heritage where she her family members quilted, and in the middle, instead of just having more material, she would paint a memory in the middle, and so you'll get to choose your own memory. But today, the part we're going to work on is making the quilt part of our picture. So what you need is a piece of paper, and what I'm going to use 2 pieces of paper. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fold, let's move this one off to the side for a minute. I'm going to fold this paper in half. You have to decide how big you want the middle of your quilt to be. I like to have a lot of room for the quilt around the outside. So what I'm going to do, I'm making my paper that I will use, and I probably have some spare. Now, if you folded your paper in half, you can simply just take a scissors and cut that. Or if you're at home and you don't have scissors, you can take and just fold this back and forth. Use your fingernail, the side, just to kind of press that down. Now once it's been creased really well, hold it your hand very flat and take the other half of your paper and then just tear. All right, now I don't want it this big when I make my frame. But if you want to have your frame be smaller for your quilt pieces, you can do that, or you can have a smaller piece yet. So I'm going to fold this in half, and I will do that again just so that I get a nice crease, and then tear it apart. You can just cut it too. All right, I will save these papers actually for next week. The only thing I'm really going to do today is I'm going to use that paper and a pencil. The thing I'm going to do today is I'm going to use my paper, my big paper, and this smaller paper that I just got done tearing, and I'm going to put it right in the middle, hold it very still. I'm going to use my pencil to trace around. Go slowly so that you don't end up drawing in places you don't want. Keep your pencil right up next to the edge of that paper. And trace all 4 sides. You don't want that on there crooked, and you want to have a pretty equal space all the way around. And if it didn't draw the whole line, just go back and do that now. Now I'm going to use this other half of the paper as my ruler. Now if you want to use a ruler you can, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide this up into spaces that I can make my quilt. And what I usually do is I just kind of line that up with my rectangle, and then I just continue that out to the edge on both sides. I'm going to do it this way as well. That's how I start making my quilt. That's not the only thing I'm going to do. Okay, now that I have all 4 corners done, it's not perfect, but that's really not that important that it's perfect. I do want to divide these down into smaller pieces even yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that flat paper. I think this is about where the middle is. So that's where I'm going to put my dividing line. I'm just going to split this in half. And you can get your ruler out and actually measure these things, but I'm just kind of looking at it, eyeballing it, and just getting it where I want. One more on this side. Okay. Now, you could leave it just boxes like this, or if you're feeling just a little bit like you'd like a couple more, I'm going to split my corner ones in half. On the one I did over here, I just left it boxes, so that gives you kind of an idea of what that'll be. But now that I have these done, or I should say once I have these done, what we're going to do, we are going to add texture to make this look a little bit more like quilts, and that's where the crayons will come into play. So I just have a box of old crayons. You can use old or new, it really won't matter. You're going to use your crayons, lots of different colors, and you're going to go on a texture hunt. And what do I mean by a texture hunt is you're going to find things that have texture and put that underneath to do some rubbing. So hold on, I'll show you what I mean. Okay. So, for example, this basket right here, careful, it's a little wet. I am going to use that, and I'm going to put my paper right on, I think I'm going to do this corner right here. I'm going to put it right in the corner. I'm going to try to get this neat texture. So I've put my paper on top of that, and I'm going to use one of my crayons. And I am going to color right on top of where that texture is. Any color, you get to choose. And if the texture is too small, you might have to move your paper around to fill that whole shape in, which is what I'm going to do. Make sure to fill that whole space up. If you don't have a basket, there are lots of other places you can find textures. For example, one of my favorite textures, places to find, is the bottom of your shoe. Make sure that it's not too dirty, of course, but you can put that under your paper. I'm going to put it right here, and I'm going to use a different color. And I'm going to color on that, and I'll get a totally different texture. You want to make sure you're getting the whole thing on there. It's going to be kind of tricky because it's bumpy. And different shoes, if you have more than one kind of shoe, maybe your parents or a sibling of yours, a sister or brother, they might have different textures on the bottom of their shoes. So check that out. I'm going to continue to go around and find some more textures. I'm leaving empty spaces in between. So I will do texture, blank space, texture, blank space, texture, and I'll just go around the whole paper until I have those spaces filled in. I'll show you what mine looks like, and I'll tell you about the textures when I get back. So I've gone around my art room here, and I found some textures. I repeated a couple just because I liked them so much. Here's my shoe. I've done it twice, different colors. I did the basket twice. This one is a wood shelf that I have in my room. It has the texture of the wood on there. This was the wall in my room, which is made out of a cement block, so that had kind of a neat texture, I thought. This is, I don't know if you guys can see it because it's in yellow, but this is the speaker from the radio. And this is kind of the texture from a stepping stool that I have in my classroom. But really, you can find texture just about anywhere. Try to find things that are bumpy, things that are that will show up when you put it under your paper and have a nice look to it. You can experiment on another piece of paper if that helps you. And if you want to, remember, if you want to repeat some, you can. Now that I have those done, I am going to do, so those were our real textures, right? Now I'm going to do some imply textures. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my crayon, and I just have the smooth table underneath, and I'm going to lightly, I'll choose a few different colors here, that I think will look nice with the ones that I've already got on here. And I'm just coloring them in solid. You don't have to push hard with these crayons or anything. In fact, it actually works a little better if you don't push so hard, because after you get those colored in, the empty places, remember, you don't have to do the middle, but once you get those colored in, you can take another color and then draw some designs over them. So maybe some lines, or if you don't want to do lines, you can do shapes. I think I want a darker. And I'm just going to keep doing that all the way around. When I get that done, I will show you what it looks like. Okay, so there you go. I have drawn some lines or shapes on top. Even dots work really well. I've left the middle blank for right now, and really that's all I need you to do for today. If you want to, you could take a black crayon or a black marker and go over the lines that divide this, or you can wait until next week. It depends how much time you have today. For sure, make sure you have your name on here. If you're at school, don't forget to write your class code, which is the first letter of your teacher's name and the grade that you're in. So if you're at home, please send me a picture on Seesaw, and at school, I'll already see what you're doing. I hope you've had fun with this one. You've had some chance to find some cool textures. And until next time, stay creative and goodbye.